Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. Now, I need you to pause absolutely everything you're doing. If you're driving in the car, pull it over. I don't care if you're on the freeway, pull over into the shoulder and listen the fuck up, okay? Okay, don't actually do that. But this is not just another episode. This is episode 100. And I am shooketh. Like 100 episodes? How did we get here? And if you've been here since the beginning, the first of it all, I fucking love you. You're iconic, and you've been through it all with me. And if you're new here, well, welcome. A very warm welcome. You picked a very good time to arrive because we are not easing into this. We're not just, as we do here, we're not just going to like slowly get comfy in this. We're stepping into a full blown rebrand. Like literally, what's the other word I'm looking for? Oh my God, this is off to a great start. Literally, metaphorically, all. Should I cut that? Probably not. Literally, figuratively, metaphorically, all the ways that we can rebrand. And I am not just talking about the podcast. I mean you, and I mean me. And I do mean the podcast. If you look at the socials, there is a brand new look for Hot Air. It's not a giant departure from where we've been, but like the podcast has evolved a lot, and like I've been upgrading the branding, but I decided to do a whole new look, really start taking the designs, the social media, the thumbnails a little bit more seriously. Like that is the taxing part of a podcast. It's very easy for me to sit down and just like jibber jabber. Somebody the other day told me that I was a gabby bitch. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, what is a gabby bitch? And I guess it means the same as a chatty Cathy, which I'm totally fine with. I will wear the shirt that says I'm a gabby bitch. I'm like here for it, right? So it's easy to be a gabby bitch, but all the stuff behind the scenes, the editing, the marketing, the visuals, I was like, we need to upgrade this. So I'm going to start adding in some new visuals in the episodes. If you're watching, I'm going to be really on posting my reels. Life has been pretty crazy lately, so, I haven't been quite as consistent, but I am diving into this rebrand, taking this so much more seriously than I have over the last 100 episodes, which if you can even imagine if that's possible or not, because I've been like really in it. But again, this isn't just about visual branding. I mean, it could be if you're a business owner and you need a little oomph, a little inspiration, but this is about rebranding you, your life, who you want to be. This is a very self-helpy episode, and I am so here for it. So yes, today's episode is not about that surface level change. It can be if you want it to be. It's not about a cute little reset or like temporary motivational boosts that fade in like 2 days and you're over them. This is about a real shift, a real upgrade, a real moment where you look at your life and you go like, okay, what is actually working? What is absolutely not? And what am I finally ready to let go of? And what am I finally ready to step into? So we're talking about what's not coming with you into your next era, into your rebrand. We're talking about why your life might be a little off brand right now, but like, don't worry, we'll unpack that very gently or not so gently, depending on how heated I get. We're talking about the difference between looking like you've changed and actually changing. We're building a rebrand checklist that you can apply immediately. And yes, we're going to call it the truth about main character energy because some of you think you have it, and we need to understand that some of us don't, and we definitely need to talk about that. So this episode is part mindset shift, part reality check, part strategy, and part me lovingly dragging you and me into the next level. So if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been feeling like you've outgrown your current life, but don't know what to do about it, well, samesies sometimes. If you've been saying like, I want more, but your actions have not caught up to you wanting more, then this is the episode for you. And before we get into it, make sure that you are following me on social media, Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Head over to my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com to shop my merch, like my cute shirt and my cute mug. There's stickers, tumblers, clothes, all the things. And if you feel like there's something you want me to dive deeper into, you can submit your listener stories and topic suggestions on my website. And again, I'm going to be posting a hell of a lot more on the socials, a lot of tools from this episode we're going to be sharing right on the gram so that you can also share them with others should you know somebody who you think might need this info. We've got a lot to get into. I actually might break this into 2 episodes because this is going to be a very long, like we're looking at almost 2 hours here, and like I would listen to myself talk for 2 hours straight, but I don't know about y'all. You might need a break. So we might break this into 2 episodes depending on, the length once I get there. But yes, we've got a lot to get into. So breathe, grab your journal, get ready to be called out in the best way possible, and let's hit it. Hotair, hot takes therapy, no filter. Say what I mean. Hotair, let's be real. You're listening to Hot Air. Okay, before we are going to let's say it in a second, but I ordered balloons, okay, for this episode. I ordered these big neon pink, those blow up ones that every white basic bitch has at their baby shower that had the number 100. And somehow that was in my shopping cart on Amazon and everything else got delivered, but those remained in my shopping cart. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I have nothing. So if you're watching on YouTube, I threw up some of my old decor over here, my little neon martini light. This is not a podcast for alcoholics, but alcoholics are welcome because alcoholics are people too. Usually I do have a cocktail in my mug, but it is very early. It's not, oh, I don't have my watch on. It's not even 10 a.m. So this is coffee today. There's no guessing game. And TMI, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm really struggling here with my, what's that called? Not camel toe, the male version, moose knuckle. Usually I'm wearing like sweatpants or pajama pants. I was like, you must wear jeans for this 100th episode. And well, some of you might be getting a show. So you're welcome. We're celebrating 100 episodes with my fucking moose knuckle. Okay, let's reel it in. This is serious. Hot Air has a rebrand. I am rebranding my life. And let's help you rebrand yours. So part 1, what's not coming with me into my 100th episode era? If I haven't set the tone already, let me set the tone immediately because we are not easing into this. I don't have time. And frankly, neither do you, okay? Just because something has been in your life for a very long time does not mean that it deserves to come with you into your next era. Longevity is not loyalty. Time invested is not a return on investment. And some of you are out here carrying things into your future simply because you've already carried them this far. And that is the weakest reason I've ever heard in my life. And I'm very serious. Some of you are emotionally hoarding. Like I've done it too. You've got habits, routines, relationships, mindsets, coping mechanisms just stacked up in the corners of your life like clutter that you keep saying you're like gonna deal with eventually. And eventually never comes. We know this. It just quietly turns into your identity and becomes your normal. It's your new normal. And then one day you wake up and you're like, why does my life feel so heavy? Why does everything feel like effort? And why do I feel stuck? We have all been there. Maybe you're there now because you are dragging around a version of yourself that no longer exists and that you have already outgrown. And I want to be very clear. Outgrowing something doesn't always mean it was bad. That's where people get this whole thing very twisted. They think something has to be toxic or dramatic or terrible in order to let it go. And the answer to that is just no. Sometimes it was good. Sometimes it served you. Sometimes it got you through a season of your life that you genuinely needed, but you are not in that season anymore. Seasons change, people. And instead of honoring that growth, you're clinging to it because of the familiarity. And naturally, familiarity is seductive. It feels safe. It feels predictable. It feels like control. But what it actually is most of the time is limitation because the version of you that you're trying to become does not exist in the same environment that you've been tolerating. And it doesn't exist in that familiarity. And yes, I said tolerating because a lot of you are not thriving. You're just tolerating shit. You're tolerating habits that simply don't support you. You're tolerating people who don't inspire you. You're tolerating routines that don't excite you at all. And you've convinced yourself that it's fine because it's not actively ruining your life, but not ruining your life. Like that's a very low bar. That should not be your baseline. That is not the standard. That is the bare minimum. You want more than the bare minimum. Like raise your bar and your expectations. This new era This 100th episode era is what we're going to call it for everyone is not about maintaining, okay? It is about elevating. And elevation requires elimination. Elevation requires elimination. And you don't get to level up while holding on to everything from your old level. That's how this works. You have to create space. You have to make decisions that feel uncomfortable in the moment, but necessary in the long term. And I think one of the biggest lies that people tell themselves is that they need more clarity before they make a change. They say that I just need to be sure. I just need to think about it more. I just need more time. And no, you fucking don't. You need courage because most of the time you already know. You already feel it. You already have the little voice in your head that's like, okay, this isn't it. This isn't it for you. This isn't working. This doesn't feel right anymore. We know that feeling. Yeah, it's hard to describe, but we know when something just isn't right anymore. But instead of listening to it, you negotiate with it and you talk yourself out of it. You minimize it. And let me tell you something, okay? That voice doesn't get quieter. Over time, it gets louder. It gets more persistent. It starts showing up as frustration, as boredom, as restlessness, and as resentment for yourself. And then you're like, why am I so irritated all the fucking time? And because you are living out of alignment with yourself. That's why. You're not living the life that you know you want to because you haven't upgraded. So for me, because I guess my new phrase is because I'm a Leo. For me, stepping into this 100th episode era is not just about celebrating what I have built. It's about deciding what comes next. And more importantly, what does not come next, because not everything deserves access to the next level version of you. And not everything deserves to benefit from your growth. And I know that that sounds like intense. It sounds kind of selfish almost, but it's also incredibly freeing because the moment that you realize that you are allowed to choose what stays and what goes, then like everything is going to start shifting. You're not stuck. You're not trapped. You're not obligated. You are choosing. And if you are choosing something that doesn't serve you, that's on you, my friends. That's a you problem. Now, I want to give you something practical here because I don't want this to just be dramatic and just be me blibber blabbering. That's a new phrase too. On a rant, a dramatic rant. Like, even though I do enjoy a dramatic rant, like, let's be real. I want to give you something that you can actually do with this. I want you to do what is called a life audit. And I know that sounds like something you're avoiding doing because it feels like work, but stay with me. Like the word audit, perhaps there could be another term for it, but this is where things start to get very real. Don't worry, the IRS is not coming. I want you to break your life into categories: relationships, habits, work, environment, mindset, routines, even how you spend your free time. And I want you to rate each one from 1 to 10, and not based on what you wish it was, not based on potential, but based on reality now. What is it actually giving you right now? Why don't I do it with you? So, first one, relationships. Honestly, I'd say about an 8. An 8. My relationships are about an 8 out of a 10. I'm really nourishing the very important relationships to me. And I think by the end of the year, they'll probably be at a 10 because I am slowly evolving into my 100th episode era and letting go of relationships that I don't want to bring with me, that don't deserve this badass elevated version of me. Habits, ooh, my habits. I would say they are about a 6 right now. My initial response was a 5, but I know that I'm pretty consistent, but my gym has been a little off. My diet has been a little off. Actually, I haven't even eaten breakfast today. And like I said, now it's past 10 a.m., but my habits could certainly use some work. And speaking of work, the next category is work. I would say, listen, I don't love, like, I'm not like, oh, in love with what I do. I'm in love with doing this podcast and I'm in love with the hobbies that I hope become my full source of income. But I like what I do. And there's times when I'm really inspired by it. So I would say work is probably like a 7. Like, there's definitely room for growth there, which means I need to figure out what I'm going to take with me into my 100th episode era when it comes to work, because we want everything to be a 10, right? Environment, honestly, I'm going to say a 10 because I moved. I've been keeping this place tidy and clean. I have a studio. I had my friends over for a little housewarming the other day. Like, 10 out of 10, loving my new environment. Mindset, hmm. I mean, I think my mindset's been pretty good. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna say an 8 out of a 10 for my mindset because I still have these moments of negativity where maybe because my routines are lacking, I'm not in love with my bod currently, or, you have that self-doubt sometimes or wonder what the hell you're doing with life, but, like, it's pretty good. Thank God therapy. So, anyway, you get the gist. It's pretty straightforward, and it's actually quite interesting to, like, try and give yourself a little rating on the scale for and that is really helpful. And here's the key for all of this when you're gonna do it, you have to be really honest because if you start inflating your scores out of 1 to 10, then you're gonna make yourself feel better. You are defeating the entire purpose. Like, it's almost like maybe those low numbers, you need to be a little harsher with yourself. Like, if your routine is inconsistent, it's not a 9, people. If your relationships feel draining, they are not an 8. Like, call it what it is. This is only for you. Nobody's watching. And once you've done that, anything that falls below a 7, we're looking at that closely. We are questioning it. We're asking, why is this still here? What is this actually adding to my life? And if the answer is not much or I don't know, well, that's your sign. Level up. So mine was what? Was it my routines or my habits were at about a 6? It's time for me to take a very close look at that and figure out why and how I can take that number and pump it up to an 8. And here's the thing, your life is just a reflection of what you tolerate, not what you say you want, not what you post about on Instagram, not what you talk about with your friends. What you tolerate consistently becomes your reality. If you're tolerating shitty family members, that's your reality. If you're tolerating lower pay than you deserve, that's your reality. If you're tolerating a toxic relationship, honey, that's your reality. And in a lot of the recent episodes, I've been saying if you want a resource or more information about this, whatever the topic is, you can go Google this, blah, 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 whatever the title or the theme or the topic or the category or the resource. You know what I'm saying here. My brain is drifting away, but we're going to reel it back in. But I am going to revisit a lot of the things that I've been pointing out for you, things for you to Google, terms. That's the word I was looking for. Terms for you to Google. I will revisit them deeper in future episodes to like pick up, re educate. So, that being said, if you want a resource, and you want to go deeper into the idea of small changes creating a massive transformation, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. That book, I've talked about it before, by James Clear. It breaks down how your daily behaviors shape your identity, which is exactly what we're talking about here, right? What you tolerate shapes your reality. Your behaviors shape your identity because this isn't just about removing things, it's about becoming someone who no longer accepts certain things. And if you haven't noticed, I've been bringing in a lot of listener questions, whether they were comments or DMs or things or little pieces of emails that people might have sent me. So this one is relevant to kind of like everything we're talking about. Someone asked, how do I know if I'm outgrowing something or if I'm just being too picky? And that is such a valid, important question. I think it's extremely relatable. And I love this question. It means you're aware if you're asking yourself this. It means you're paying attention. But my answer is, if you have to constantly convince yourself that something is good enough, it is probably not. Growth does not feel like constant justification. It doesn't feel like you have to talk yourself into staying in a situation. It feels like clarity. It feels like relief. It feels like, okay, like, oh, this actually makes sense now. So, like, sure, think about it for a little while. Have you outgrown it or are you just being picky? But if you're thinking about that too long, the answer is you've outgrown it. Just like when you're dating someone and you're like, "Oh, I don't know if this feels right," and you just keep asking yourself over and over and over. But if you're asking yourself if it feels right for a long period of time, the answer is it doesn't feel right. Just like if you need to go through your significant other's phone, like you're going to find something. If you don't feel like you need to go through their phone, there's probably nothing there. That's just me though, okay? I will always find something because I always know my intuition. I'm a Leo. We have crazy intuition. I know if you're texting nudes and dick pics to somebody else, okay? The amount of exes that I have caught doing that. But that's not what this is about, okay? Because I have left that behind and that is not coming with me in my 100th episode era. With my new relationship, I have no desire to go through his phone. I don't give a flying shit because I am confident that I can trust him. And that for sure is coming with me into my 100th episode era, okay? But let's bring it back to this whole being picky thing, because being picky is not the problem. Having standards is not the problem. The problem is when you lower those standards to accommodate things that you have already outgrown. And I get it, because letting go is extremely uncomfortable. It is uncertain. It can feel lonely. It can feel like you're losing something. But what you're actually doing is making space. You are creating room for something better, something more aligned, something that actually matches the version of you that you are becoming. And an example of this, which I've said before, is The Secret. I used to be obsessed with The Secret, ultimate manifester right here. Sometimes I'm like not manifesting the greatest. I lose my touch sometimes. But in The Secret, it says if you're ready for a relationship, A, you can't still be holding room in your heart for your ex, for somebody else. You know, you have to move on from that. But create space in the closet where they can hang their stuff up or leave room for another toothbrush. Like open up that space so that someone can fill it up. And that happened recently to me when I moved into this new apartment. Significant increase in rent. I was very nervous. But my friend Jordan said to me, also, think I said this before on an episode. He was like, this is what happened when you moved into your old apartment. You needed to make more money to stay in that apartment and to feel comfortable and not be stressed out. And because that need for more income had opened up, all these opportunities started coming my way. I started making more money so that I could then afford that apartment and then afford it without even worrying about it, and then afford it while taking wild ass vacations on my own all over the world. And then that happened with this apartment. I've only been here February, March, April, 3 and a bit months, and half of that time I've been traveling, but my rent increased a lot. All of my bills, frankly, have increased since I moved. But I went, okay, instead of freaking out, I'm going to open up space. I'm going to open up the opportunity for more income, more personal training clients, more marketing clients. That space opened up instead of me, holding myself back to an old standard and being scared. And now I'm making a hell of a lot more money. And frankly, I didn't even have to try. It's because, like, in my opinion, energetically, I was like, you know what? Jordan's right. I'm going to be making more money. I'm going to just manifest these new clients. I am going to ask for raises. I am going to move into my 100th era with more fucking income so I can not only afford this apartment, but I can still take the trips I want to take. Like, you have to make space. And sometimes making that space is really scary at first. Like, I was like, oh God, am I going to be house poor? Like, it was stressful. It was scary. And then you have to decorate the whole apartment. You got to buy all these new things because it's a bigger space. It's a lot. It's a lot for one single dog dad, me, to do on their own. But instead of panicking and being scared, I just said, it's okay. It's going to happen. I'm opening up myself to more opportunities and more money and more income. And it fell in my lap, honestly, within like 60 days. So all of that to say, the truth is you can't build a new life while you're clinging onto an old one, right? You can't step into a brand new era while holding onto everything from the last one. If you're moving, throw a bunch of shit out too. At some point, you have to decide that where you are going is more important than what you are used to and what you are comfortable with. Because again, being uncomfortable is going to help you level the fuck up. And that decision right there, that is the rebrand. Part two, rebranding isn't just aesthetic, it's behavioral. Now, let's talk about something that people get very excited about, and they also get it very wrong, which is rebranding. Because the second you say rebrand, everyone suddenly becomes a creative director, right? New fonts, new colors, new outfits, new apartment decor, new Instagram aesthetic, new lighting, new vibe, new everything. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. I like kind of love that for you, and I love that for me. I really do. But I'm not above, like, hello, I'm not above a dramatic glow up. Just did it with the pod. So, like, you know this. But if the only thing that has changed is how it looks and not how you live, well, congratulations, you didn't rebrand. You just simply redecorated. And there is a very big difference. So me doing this podcast rebrand, if I just change the graphics, but nothing else changes, if I just change the thumbnails, but everything else remains the same, it's not really a rebrand. I just redesigned the thumbnails. I have to dive into this new era of hot air, right? Because a real rebrand is not just visual, it is behavioral. And it's behavioral first. Visuals can come later. It's internal, it's structural, it's how you operate when nobody is watching. It's how you spend your time on a random Tuesday. Hopefully, you're listening to Hot Air on Tuesday when you're tired and no one is holding you accountable. It's how you spend your time with yourself. It's the choices you make when it would be easier to like fall back into your old patterns. Like that is your real brand, not your curated version, not your highlight reel. Your default behavior is your brand. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck because it's way more fun to change the outside, get your hair done, buy a new outfit than it is to actually change the inside. It is more fun to go to Zara and get some new clothes than it is to build discipline. It's way more fun to redesign your space than it is to redesign your habits. And it's way more fun to post about the new era than it is to actually live like you are in one. So, what happens when you do that? You create a disconnect. You've got this elevated aesthetic, this polished image, this new version of you, and then your behavior doesn't match it. And at first, it kind of works, right? You feel different for a little bit. You feel upgraded. You feel like you stepped into something new. But that feeling always fades very quickly when your habits don't support it, because eventually your behavior is always going to expose your reality. You can't out aesthetic a lack of discipline. You can't out brand inconsistency. You can't out style habits that are actively keeping you stuck. Like it will catch up with you. It always does. And I've seen this play out in so many ways. People will go through these intense bursts of reinvention with new goals and new routines and try to have a new mindset, new everything. And for like 2 weeks, right? They're on fire. They're super motivated. They are focused. They are showing up. They're doing the damn thing. And then something small happens. They get tired. They get busy. Something throws them off. And instead of recalibrating, they collapse and they go right back into an old version of themselves like it's muscle memory because, well, it is muscle memory and it's easy to do that. And no one's faulting you for that. It just depends on how you bounce back. And when this happens, they look at the rebrand and they're like, why didn't this work? And I'm like, because you didn't change the system, you just changed the surface. A real rebrand requires you to build systems that support the identity that you are stepping into. It requires repetition, it requires consistency, it requires you to show up in ways that feel unnatural at first until they become natural because you're learning to live a new way. And that's the part that people don't want to hear because it's not glamorous. It's not exciting sometimes. It can be, but like it's not something you can post about and get immediate validation for while you're trying to like rewire your brain and create new habits. But it's the only thing that actually works. So let's bring this back to this new era of hot air because I'm not just talking at you, I'm in this too. Okay. The visuals are upgraded, sure, yes. The branding is a little bit sharper, a little bit louder, a little bit more intentional, a little bit more elevated. Great, super. But that only works because the behavior behind it has changed. The way that I'm going to be approaching content, the way that I structure episodes, the way that I think about the audience, the way that I show up creatively, the way that I am posting and sharing more. It's all more deliberate. You can't see it right now, but on the opposite wall from where I'm sitting, there is a whole whiteboard that, I mean, frankly, I will have posted a reel of me trying to stick it up there, and I have it broken down into 3-week segments and 3 categories for my 3 main goals, one of which is my book deal, one of which is hot air glow up, and one of which is my art and trying to take my visual arts to NYC. And I have it all broken down in different goals and things that I need to do week by week. And the structure for hot air is probably going to feel similar to you, but the behind the scenes is going to be very different and far more intentional. So everything is far more deliberate and it's way more aligned with where I want hot air to go. And that is why it feels real, right? That's why it feels like a true shift and not just like a cosmetic upgrade. It's not just the thumbnails looking better because they do look better. Let's be real. Like if I had kept the same habits, and the same level of effort, the same approach, like willy-nilly with my posting and just slapped a new logo or a new visual, it would feel fake, right? It would feel forced. And eventually it would fall apart and I would just go back to my old ways. Like I may as well not even rebrand, but the same thing applies to you. If you say you're stepping into a new era, your behavior needs to reflect that, like immediately, not eventually. And immediately doesn't mean everything is going to change, but you make a list. You start following that list. You take it one little step at a time. You're immediately changing your behavior, not when you feel ready, like now. Because the longer you wait to align your actions with your identity, the harder it becomes to make that shift. So, here's another tool that I want to give you for this segment. And it's very simple, but obviously useful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be giving it to you. Okay. It is called identity based decision making. Before you make a decision, any decision, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what would the version of me that I am becoming do in this situation? Not the version of you that is comfortable, not the version of you that is used to your current patterns, the version of you that you're actively trying to become. Would that version of you hit snooze 5 times? Mm-mm. Highly likely not. Would that version of you say yes to something that drains them? No, probably not. Would that version of you procrastinate on something that they said really mattered to them? No. Would that version of you keep entertaining people who don't meet their standards? Fuck no. And I mean, maybe the answer to some of that is maybe you're figuring it out, but like highly likely, probably not, right? And the more you start making decisions from that place, the version that you are becoming, the faster your behavior starts to align with your identity. It's not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. It's about closing the gap between who you are and who you say you want to be. We can spend our whole lives talking about who we want to be, or we can take some fucking action. And if you want to go deeper into this concept, there is a book called You Are a Brand by Catherine Caputa. And it really breaks down how identity and perception work together. Because whether you like it or not, you're already a brand, right? Everyone is a brand. The only question is whether it's intentional or accidental. And it's probably better to be intentional, right? And I'll be honest with you, I have not read that book yet. I just did a lot of Googling to see if there was any books that aligned with the topic today. But did I order it from Amazon? Yes, and I will read it. And we'll highly likely revisit it on another episode. But let's talk about something else that needs to be addressed here. This idea that motivation is going to carry you through your rebrand, because it's not. Motivation is great, right? But motivation is also unreliable. It is inconsistent. It shows up when it feels like it and disappears when you need it the most. Like, for example, the other day, I went and watched The Devil Wears Prada 2, right? And I remember watching the first one in high school, and I was so motivated by it. You know, I was a dancer, I was an artist, I was a singer, I was an actor. That's what I was studying at my performing arts high school. And seeing Andy's story play out in New York, I found it so inspiring. And I'm like, again, I have full body chills. I remember like making lists and like really dialing into my dream. At that point, I was actually going to apply for school to work in fashion. And I remember like going home and working on my portfolio. And then the same thing happened when I was watching The Devil Wears Prada 2. I instantly felt motivation physically. And it's one of those feelings that you can't really describe. It's like, oh, I can go home and like create this list that I did on the wall, right? But that motivation can go away so quickly. So you act on it when you can, but motivation, when it like flies away, it flies away real fast. And like motivation is great. That can be the seed that is being planted, right? So you can make the list, so you can put up the whiteboard on the wall and start writing down. But once that motivation goes away, once I put up that whiteboard and I wrote out all of these pillars for the next 3-ish weeks, what happens next? Because that motivation isn't just going to stay for the whole entire day. Like, frankly, motivation is the fun part, right? It shows up, but then it disappears kind of when you need it the most. So if your entire plan is based on feeling motivated, you're kind of setting yourself up to fail. What actually carries you through is structure. It's discipline. It's habits that are so ingrained that you do them even when you don't want to, like when you just really don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. And the truth is, like, your old self had habits too, right? They just weren't serving you. So if you don't replace them with new ones, you're going to default back to those old ones. That's not a lack of willpower. That's just how your brain works. We all have habits that are negative. Like, why not have habits that are more positive? And that's where people start to get really frustrated. They expect that this rebrand is going to feel good like all of the time. They expect it to feel exciting and empowering and motivating. And sometimes it does. A lot of the time it does. But a lot of the other time, well, it can feel a little bit uncomfy and it feels unfamiliar and it feels like effort because it is effort. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it is new. Anything new is not necessarily going to feel extremely comfortable at first. So instead of interpreting discomfort as a sign that something isn't working, start seeing it as a sign that something is changing. Just like when we feel anxious, are we actually anxious or are we just fucking excited? Because growth is not supposed to feel like your comfort zone. If it did, it wouldn't be growth. Growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And again, I want to bring this back to a question that I saw on somebody else's Instagram post, someone in the comment section, because we know I love diving down that comment section. Somebody asked, I feel like I know who I want to be, but I keep falling back into old habits. How do I actually change? And here is the honest answer. It's not about knowing who you want to be. It's about acting like that person consistently enough that it becomes who you are. A little bit confusing, right? You don't become a new version of yourself by thinking differently one time. You become a new version of yourself by behaving differently repeatedly. And yes, you're going to slip. Yes, you're going to have moments where you fall back into old patterns. That is 100% normal. Don't mistake that. That's normal. That's part of the process. But the difference between someone who successfully rebrands their life and someone who doesn't is what they do next. Like, do you spiral and go, well, I messed up, so I might as well go back to the old version of me? Or do you catch it, reset it, and keep going? When I was working through therapy on a lot of my anger issues, because I can get really frustrated, really pissed off. I have a very short fuse. And that short fuse is exposed mostly when I see other people treating other people poorly, or, of course, when people treat me poorly, when there's no consideration for anybody else, their feelings, their physical space. I just don't like inconsiderate people, especially on the road. But when I started working through that in therapy, there were times when that frustration, that feeling of anger would come back up. And initially, I was like, ugh, I haven't healed. I haven't changed. Like, this isn't even working. Like, why am I going to therapy? Like, I would almost revert back to like, there were times when I was like, you know what? Just be that bitch you used to be. Just be a cunt. Just go off, swear at people, get angry at them. Like, do I still do it in traffic? Yes, because no one can hear me. But I no longer do it to be people's faces, and especially not people that I care about, friends and family. I try very hard to have very calm interactions, even if I'm extremely frustrated. But there are times when I want to pop off, when I want to go off, when I want to just lose my absolute shit. And initially, I thought that meant that I should just revert back to my old ways. But acknowledging it, saying, you know what, like, you slipped up, you maybe popped off a little bit, you felt that same anger, but do you want to go back to who you used to be? That was mad all the time. The answer was no. So I said, at least you're still working on it. At least you're acknowledging it. At least I can sense it. I can feel it. I can hang up the phone before I go off on somebody and then revisit the conversation later. I took action. I did things differently, even though there were times when I wanted to give up and revert back to who I was. You just keep trying. You get back on that horse. You acknowledge that you slipped up, but you keep working because the old version of you wasn't working, wasn't trying to rebrand, wasn't trying to create new habits. This new version is, but it's going to be trial and error. It is not going to happen overnight. Like, when you mess up, like, are we gonna spiral and go like, "Oh, well, I fucked up, so I might as well go back to, like, being an absolute psychopath," or are we gonna catch it, reset, and, like, keep going until we no longer revert back? Because, like, rebranding is not one perfect streak of behavior. I might rebrand hot air again because maybe it's not perfect. It's a series of choices. It's a pattern, it's momentum built over time, okay? And I'll leave you with this for this segment. Your life is always reflecting your current standards, not your future ones, not your aspirational ones, your current ones. So if you want a different life, You don't just need a new aesthetic. It helps, but you need new standards. And more importantly, you need behavior that actually upholds your new standards. And again, that right there, that is the rebrand. Part three, your life might be off brand. Or maybe like a knockoff. You're a knockoff Prada maybe, and you need to be a legit Prada. So I'm gonna say something that might hit a little too close to home, and if it does, that is fucking good, okay? That is the point. Your life might be off brand, and I don't mean that in a cute, quirky way, okay? Like, hee hee, I'm a little bit messy. Not like that. I mean fundamentally misaligned. I mean the version of you that you talk about, that you present, that you believe yourself to be is not fully backed up by the way you actually live your day to day life. All of us guilty of it, me included. And listen, this is not an attack. This is awareness. We all present ourselves how we want to be seen, but we don't actually live by those rules a lot of the time. Most people are not doing this intentionally. It's not like you woke up and said, you know what? I'm going to build a life that contradicts everything I say that I want. Like, no, okay? What happens is very quiet. It's much sneakier. You slowly start making small compromises. You start letting things slide. You tell yourself that it's not a big deal. I'll fix it later. You get willy nilly, or you say, like, this is temporary. And then those temporary decisions stack up. And suddenly you've built a lifestyle that does not match your identity at all. And you might be presenting a different identity than what you're actually like behind the scenes. You say you're ambitious, but your actions are inconsistent. You say you want to be healthy, but your routines don't reflect that. You say you want high quality relationships, but you keep hanging on to and entertaining low effort people. You say you want to grow and evolve and level up, and you hate your job and you want to raise, but you're still operating on the same patterns that kept you stuck in the first place. Like, seriously, don't complain about anything if you're not going to make some change, right? That is off brand behavior. And the reason that this matters so much is because misalignment creates friction, internal friction, the kind that you cannot always explain, but you feel it. Even if it's just a hint of it, you feel it. It shows up as anxiety, restlessness, anger, frustration, and this constant sense of like something is off, and you try to fix it externally. You think you need a change of scenery, a vacation, a distraction, a new opportunity, but the issue is not external. It's that your life is not aligned with your identity. Sometimes those things, like a new outfit or a vacation or a distraction, can help you start to reset, but it's not the fixer. And here is the kicker in all of this, right? You can't feel confident in a life that does not reflect who you are. You just cannot, because confidence comes from evidence. It comes from showing up in ways that reinforce your identity. It comes from proving to yourself over and over again that you are who you say you are. So, if your actions don't match your identity, your confidence is going to feel shaky. It's going to feel inconsistent because deep down, like, you know when you are not fully showing up, even if you are trying to fake it till you make it. You know when you are cutting corners, and you know when you are settling. And I think a lot of people try to bypass this by doubling down on the identity part. They talk about it more. They post about it more. They try to convince themselves and everyone else that this is who they are. But again, you cannot outtalk your behavior. You cannot manifest your way out of misalignment while continuing to act the same way. Here's an example. I used to have a friend who would act super woo woo. You know, she even looked it visually. She had like tattoos all over her. She would go to yoga. She actually had, I think she had her own podcast and her own kind of motivational business for a while. And the things that she would post, the way that she would speak on social media and in person about her business ventures was so misaligned from her actual personality. Because to be frank, she was kind of a bitch and she was rude to people behind the scenes. She was rude to me. She was rude to our other friends, which is why we stopped being friends with her. But on social media, or when she would meet people that were of importance or could help her level up, she went into her like little woo woo entrepreneurial vibe. But if it was a server at a restaurant who can't help her, or somebody providing some sort of service, I guess, that, wouldn't work to her benefit, she was not very nice. So That, my friends, is why she is not success well, I don't wanna say that. She is successful in her own right. I shouldn't, talk shit about her business. Not that anyone knows what I'm talking about, but it's just misaligned, right? You're not going to get to this next level and this next rebrand and this next evolution if behind the scenes, your behavior is not matching what you are putting out there. And that's why I'm so brutally honest with hot air when I'm like, none of this I've mastered. None of this I think I'm an expert at. All of this I am doing with you. The reason I talk about these things is because I am actively working on them and doing them. I'm not coming with this information as though I'm an expert or as though I'm like, Mel Robbins, who's published all the books. I think she has more than one book, right? She has to. Who's like people go to for their inspiration. Like that is not I. That is not me. I am learning this with you and I'm sharing what I'm learning with you. So I like to think internally, what I'm giving internally is also what I'm giving externally. So all of that to say, your life is always telling the truth, even when you are not. So let's break this down in a way that actually helps you do something about it. Because awareness without action is just frustrating. The tool that I want to give you here is called alignment check. And again, it's exactly what it sounds like, but most people don't do it honestly. So I want you to take your top 3 identity statements, right? Who you believe you are or who you want to be, and be specific, not vague, fluffy, or Instagram caption energy, like just real and concrete. So, like, I am someone who prioritizes my health. That's one. I am someone who is disciplined and consistent. I suppose that's two. And three, I am someone who surrounds myself with high quality supportive people. Things like that, right? Like whatever yours are, just keep it simple and keep it concrete. And then this is where it gets a little uncomfy. I want you to compare those statements directly to your daily actions, not your intentions, not your plans, not what you did once last week, your actual repeated behaviors. Like, are you actually prioritizing your health on a daily basis? Or are you saying that while consistently choosing convenience over consistency? Are you actually disciplined? Or are you motivated occasionally and are you inconsistent most of the time? Are your relationships actually high quality? Question mark. Or are you tolerating dynamics that don't meet your standards because they're familiar? And you have to answer this. You have to do this honestly, because if you don't, you are just reinforcing the misalignment. And so for me, the one about health, like in my mind, I am someone who prioritizes my physical health. I want to be fit. I go to the gym. But when I look at the last week, have my workouts been consistent? No. Have I been drinking too much the last week because I had a lot of social evenings? Yes. I ate a lot of junk food last week. So actually, my actions do not back that up. I am not someone who prioritizes my physical health because I have not been consistent. And it's kind of a hard pill to swallow because I like to think I'm a health and wellness guru. And sometimes I fall off the wagon. Now, if everything lines up amazing, like perfect, great, wonderful, you're ahead of the game. But for most people, like me right now, there's going to be a gap. And that gap is where the work is. And let's be really clear, the goal here is not to shame yourself. I think we can definitely spiral when doing this and realizing maybe we're not aligned with what we say we want to be. This is not about beating yourself up or feeling bad about where you are at. This is about clarity, okay? Because once you see the gap, you can start to close it. Now that I've acknowledged I've been a bad boy this last week, I can start getting my shit together. And closing that gap doesn't require some massive overnight transformation. It requires small, consistent adjustments. That's it. Tiny little things. It requires you to start making choices that are in alignment with your identity, even when it feels inconvenient. And like, especially when it feels inconvenient, because that is where the shift starts to happen. And if you want a resource that really digs into execution and alignment, I highly recommend the 12-Week Year by Brian P. Morin. It's all about compressing timelines and actually following through on the things that you say matter to you. Because let's be honest here, most people don't have a clarity problem. They just have an execution problem. Some of us have these goals and we don't know how to get there and what to do with it. So like find resources to help you with that. Now let's talk about something else that comes up a lot when we have this conversation. People who say, I don't even know what my brand is yet. And first of all, that's fine. A lot of the times we're figuring it out. You don't need to have everything perfectly defined. You don't need a mission statement for your life. This is not a corporate retreat, but what you do need is just awareness. A little bit of awareness goes a long way. You need to start paying attention to your own patterns. What energizes you, what drains you, what feels aligned and feels good, and what feels forced and doesn't feel good. What makes you feel like yourself? What makes you feel like you're performing? What makes you feel genuine? And what makes you feel like a fake version of yourself? Because your brand, like that's just your identity, is not something you invent out of thin air. It's something that you uncover. It's something you refine over time by paying attention to what actually resonates with you. And there's a part that people don't love. You also discover it by eliminating what doesn't resonate with you, by trying things and realizing, like, that's not me, by stepping into environments and going, this doesn't feel right. And that can be really scary. Like, by being honest enough to admit when something isn't aligned, even if it looks good on paper, can be very challenging and pretty scary. But that's part of the rebranding process. Because sometimes the life that you thought you wanted isn't actually the life that fits you. Been there, done that. And that is okay. That is part of the process. For example, I thought my ex, I thought that was the life I wanted. I thought that the way he showed affection was the way I wanted to receive affection. And, my parents were really mushy with each other, like very affectionate, like lovey dovey. And I was like, ugh, I don't really want that. And then I got, the opposite of mushy gushy, like not super affectionate. There were times, but it was, I was like, oh, like this is what I want. I told myself that I didn't want someone who was lovey dovey and touchy feely and like would tell me all the time how much they loved me and cared about me. And come to realize I do actually want that. I do want the mushy gushy because I suppose that is the way I learned to receive love because that's what I saw my mom and my stepdad do. But sometimes we trick ourselves. We tell ourselves we want something just because it's there and readily accessible and easy, but it's not what actually fits. It's not what's going to make us happy. It's not what's going to inspire us. It's not what is lasting and for me, I tricked myself into thinking that that is how I received love and the type of relationship that I wanted, but that didn't actually fit into my life, nor the life that I want for myself moving forward. And well, that's why I no longer am in that relationship. And listen, that's okay. That's part of the process. That's part of life, right? And some of you might be asking, like, what if my life looks good on paper, but I don't feel connected to it? And that question right there is very relatable, and that is also just, like, basically the definition of misalignment. That's exactly what we're talking about. Life looks good on paper, but I don't feel connected to it. Like, looking good on paper is external validation. It's meeting expectations. It's checking boxes. But feeling connected, that is internal alignment. That's you actually being in a life that reflects who you are. Just like a man can look good on paper, you can check all the boxes, but you feel absolutely nothing. Like, hello, and if those two things don't match up, you're going to feel it. It's noticeable. You're going to feel that disconnect. You're going to feel that emptiness, that lack of fulfillment, and no amount of external success is going to fix that. The fix is getting honest about what actually matters to you, what actually fits you, what actually feels like you, and then building a life around that, not around who you think you are supposed to be. And frankly, I see a lot of my straight girlfriends go through this. They think they need to be mothers. They think, I mean, I understand that there's a maternal instinct and, evolution and whatnot, and women feel the need to have a child, right? It's part of biology. That's the word I'm looking for. But they feel like they have to get married young. They have to move in to the white picket fence and have a bunch of kids and work a job that they don't love just so they can have a family. And then later they realize that maybe that's not in alignment with what they actually wanted. But like, you can't just run away from a life when you have children and a husband and all that stuff. But I do see some of them start to not put their feelers out there in a romantic way, but start to notice that the life they currently have is not in alignment with them as individuals and their goals and even the way they want to dress and the way they want to act and the things they want to do and hobbies and trips and the experiences they want to have and the way that they view themselves inside is like nothing like what their life looks like on the outside. And I mean, that doesn't always just go for women. I think people, depending culturally, like, you feel like you have to be a doctor because your dad was a doctor and they're pushing you into that and you're building a life around what you think you're supposed to be, not what you actually want. We all have done it in some way or another, but it's like, look around you. You think about it. You have to have somebody that that has built a life that they don't necessarily feel aligned with or want and does not reflect what they actually want. And like, we don't want to be that person. Nobody wants to be that person. That is not fun. And when we're in that situation, like that might mean making changes and it might mean pivoting. It might mean letting go of things that look impressive, but don't feel right. And that can be very scary because it challenges the image that you have built and it challenges the narrative of that white picket fence, of the hot straight couple with the cute kids. Like it's going to challenge that. It's not easy, of course, to pivot away from family and a marriage and a house. But like, I promise you, living a life that looks good, but feels wrong is far more exhausting than building one that actually aligns with you. It's going to take some time, but once you get there, it's going to be like, damn, I wish I did this sooner. So if your life is off brand right now, do not consider that a failure. Just acknowledge that that it's off brand. Like that is information, that's awareness, that's your opportunity to recalibrate and rebrand. Because at the end of the day, your life is your loudest statement. Okay. It's your most honest reflection. And if it's not saying what you want it to say, it is time to rewrite it and rebrand it. And that, my friends, is where we are going to end part 1 of this rebranding series. Episode 100. I am so proud of you for sticking with me this whole time. And frankly, I'm proud of myself because we are getting into structure. We are elevating so many aspects of life. I am stoked for 2026 has been so fucking bomb already. I'm so excited to continue through this year, continue on this journey with you and, get back into Pride season as well because, those Pride episodes are coming, which is really what took this podcast to the next level. So it's gonna be really fun to revisit June. I don't know why I'm just going through the list of things that are coming in the future, but part 2 of this rebranding episode 101, will be out next Tuesday. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Head over to my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com to submit your listener stories, topic suggestions, and of course, shop all of my merch. I hope to be uploading a bunch of new merch ASAP Rocky. And until next time, stay aligned, stay aware, stay motivated, check in with yourself, start thinking about what your rebrand or just your brand, and then if you want to rebrand it, what it is, because we're going to get even deeper on part 2 of this whole wonderful Hot Air 100th episode, rebrand, evolution, level up, gorgeousness. Okay. So stay hot, stay sexy. I was going to say stay sexy and don't get murdered. I think that's from My Favorite Murder, that podcast. Anyway, I'm going to go do some rebranding. Okay. And I will see you next Tuesday. HOTAIR, hot takes therapy, no filter. Say what I mean. HOTAIR, let's be real. You're listening to Hot Air.